I'm Brian Reagan with KBM Associates, the strategy guru. And over the last two episodes, we've been discussing strategic management through the lens of a simple metaphor, a canoe. In episode one, we talked about the importance of having a destination before you start rowing and needing to know where you're going. We discussed vision, values, and the importance of having a long term target that keeps your organization in direction. In episode two, we talked about what stands between you and that destination. We discussed Richard Rumolt's concept that great strategy isn't about setting more goals, it's about identifying the biggest obstacles, preventing progress, and concentrating resources against it. Today, I want to talk about the final piece. How do you sustain progress over time? Here's the reality: a lot of businesses create a great vision and still fail. A lot of businesses identify their core weaknesses and build a strategic framework around them and still fail. Why they struggle is because they consistently fail to manage the strategic process. And that's why I believe business is not like a machine. It's much more like a garden. Every garden starts with a plan. You decide what you're going to plant, you organize the layout, what colors you want, what tall things, short things. You prepare the soil, you develop water lines, you determine where everything belongs. In business, that's strategic planning. You develop your vision, your values, your long-term target, your change missions, other strategic initiatives. Those are your plants, your soil, all the things that go into place. But planting that garden is only the beginning. Nobody, I hope not, plants a garden in the spring and expects it to thrive all year round without attention. Same is true in business. One mistake I see business owners make is just treating strategic planning like an annual event. They schedule it offsite, they create these goals, they develop initiatives. Everyone leaves excited. And guess what? That document gets placed in a drawer. 6 months later, nobody can remember what we decided. 12 months later, they're planning again. That's not strategic management, that's strategic wishing. Strategic management is what happens after the planning session. It's the discipline of continually tending to the garden. So I run many annual strategic planning sessions, and one of my favorite things to do, and this really separates the good companies from the bad companies, is pull up the strategic plan from the year before. And even if they're following our methodology, you'd be shocked to see how much drift there is. You really start to see, like, hey, this was our number one goal priority for last year. Did we meet that? No. Did we meet that? No. Sometimes, well, yeah, well, this happened, the market changed. Okay, that's fine. Why didn't we update the document? Because we did not get in the discipline of continually tending the garden. Well, how do you tend the garden? How do you water a business? That's easy. Communication. The best leaders constantly communicate the vision, the values, the priorities, the destination, not once, not twice, but over and over again. Because people need reminders. There's someone out there that said, no one's going to remember anything unless they hear it a minimum of 7 times. Okay, well, and that's 7 times not in one conversation. That's 7 different conversations. People need those reminders. They need reinforcement. Maybe it's 10 times. I don't know. And people need context. Employees make better decisions when they understand why something matters. They become more engaged when they understand where the organization is headed, and they become more accountable when they understand how their role contributes to the larger mission, excuse me. Strategy dies in silence. Culture thrives through communication. So let's take the garden analogy one step further. Imagine planting a beautiful garden and then never walking through it again. No inspections, no watering schedule, no adjustments, no attention. How healthy do you think that garden will be in 6 months? Not very. Businesses are no different. Strategic management requires regular check ins, it requires a rhythm, a cadence, a process. At the team level, this often means weekly or every other week. These are short meetings, 30 minutes or less, focused on accountability. Are you reaching your goals? What's holding you back? What do you need help with? What commitments did we make? Are we getting them done? What got done? What didn't get done? What obstacles are emerging? At the leadership level, it means monthly and quarterly reset and review. I believe these quarterly reviews are some of the most important meetings an organization can have because every 90 days, leadership has the opportunity to step back and ask, are our priorities still the right priorities? Like, did we complete our quarterly rocks? What are our new quarterly rocks? Have we discovered a new weakness? Has the market condition changed? Do we need to shift resources? Do we need to refocus our attention? And this is where strategic management comes alive because strategy is not static, it's dynamic. If, for whatever reason, you're in one of these quarterly sessions and your market has fully changed, you need to pull that document out of the drawer, which I hope it's not in a drawer, and I hope you're reviewing it every day. And you need to say, we need to revise our 1 year plan immediately. We need to revise this immediately. And you build on the spot a whole new set of tenants, rebuild the garden, so to speak. That'll keep you moving forward. So let's say nothing crazy happens. It's why quarterly rocks are so powerful. You get the opportunity to now reset them. Did we get 1/4 closer to our 1 year goal? Okay, so let's figure out the 3 to 5 most important priorities that will move the organization forward one more time. And again, it's not 20 priorities, not 50 priorities. It's just the few that matter most. That's really going to get you closer to your 1 year target. That again is tied to your change mission, which is built around a weakness that you are trying to fix for your organization. That'll get you to your 10-year target. Regular inspections help identify problems early. You catch issues before they become crises. You identify bottlenecks before they slow growth. You recognize weaknesses before they become expensive. You can shift resources where they're needed most. And perhaps most importantly, you keep the organization focused on its biggest opportunities and biggest weaknesses. That's not bureaucracy, that's stewardship. And that is tending the garden. One more thing that happens in gardens is every garden develops weeds. Every organization develops problems, miscommunications, misalignments, politics, confusions, poor accountability, weak leadership. The question isn't whether weeds will appear, they will. The question is whether you will address them. Remember what we discussed in the last episode. Not all weeds are created equal. Some are minor annoyances, and others threaten the health of the entire garden. Strategic leaders learn to identify the weeds, creating the most damage, and remove them first. But they focus on leverage, they focus on constraints. These are the problems that matter most because every weakness is not equally important. Some deserve immediate attention, others can wait. Okay, so we've talked about watering the garden, we've talked about weeding the garden. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about today is fertilizing the garden, fertilizing growth. And that really takes on a mindset shift. A lot of leaders early in their careers and even later in their careers, in my experience, is that they believe I solve problems. I solve problems for my team. I make their life easier. That's not a great leader. Over time, great leaders begin thinking differently. Instead, they say, I develop people who solve problems. And that is where scale happens. That's where organizations become sustainable. That's where culture begins to reinforce itself. Because eventually, the goal is not for every problem to flow through you. The goal is to build leaders throughout the organization who can identify problems, make decisions, and move the company forward. That's how businesses grow beyond the own. So, your teams mirror you. And that's one lesson I've learned repeatedly through my career. If you communicate the vision, they'll communicate the vision. If you live the values, they'll live the values. If you prioritize accountability, they'll prioritize accountability. If you focus on strategic priorities, they will learn to focus on strategic priorities. Culture always starts at the top, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And as leaders, we are constantly teaching. The only question is, are we teaching what's going to move our company forward, or are we teaching something that's going to hold us back? So, in closing, most gardens don't fail because they planted the wrong seeds or planted the wrong plants. They fail because someone stopped tending them. Same thing happens in business. Strategic management isn't something you do once a year. It is something you practice every week, every month, every quarter, every year. The organizations that consistently grow aren't necessarily the smartest. They aren't necessarily the largest. They aren't the most talented. They are often the organizations that simply maintain the discipline to continually inspect, adjust, communicate, and execute. They keep tending the garden. So this week, take a step back and evaluate your garden. Ask yourself what needs watering, what weeds need pulling, what conversations need to happen, what priorities need to be revisited, and what behaviors am I modeling for my team? Because strategy isn't just about creating a plan, it's about creating a culture and a management system capable of executing that plan year after year. Today's episode challenged your thinking. I'd encourage you to share it with another business owner, manager, or leader who may benefit from the conversation. And if you would like help building a stronger strategic management system inside your organization, we would love to help. At KBM Associates, we help organizations diagnose where they are, identify what's holding them back, and build practical systems that create long-term momentum. Because strategic growth, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens through clarity, focus, discipline, and consistent execution. Thank you for joining me in this 3-part series, and we believe in Strategic Growth Simplified. I'm Brian Reagan, the Strategy Guru, and thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye.